Hey, how's it going everyone? This is Lam here. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the first rumors for the Sony A74 IV. I'm also going to be taking a look at the Canon RF lens roadmap because there are a couple of interesting lenses that I do want to talk about. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So I am at the Sony Alpha Rumors website and we have a picture of the A74 IV. We don't really know much about it, but there are a couple of bullet points that I do want to go over. The first bullet point that I do want to talk about is that it looks like it's going to be getting a new sensor. You know how it goes. There's always going to be a little bit of power creep when it comes to megapixels, and it looks like we're going to be venturing up into the 30 megapixel range. I don't think we really need any more megapixels. I think 24 to 26 has been a really good stopping point. You get a lot of detail with that type of sensor, and having less megapixel actually helps out with hybrid cameras who wants to record 4K videos because you just don't need that many megapixels. Take for example the brand new A7S III. It doesn't have a high megapixel sensor because it just really doesn't need it. So there is definitely a compromise when you actually increase in megapixels. You lean more towards photography, but when you have a good balance of megapixels versus say dynamic range, that actually makes a much better hybrid camera because it really does help the video side of it. So the increase in megapixels, a lot of people are going to be viewing that in a positive light, but as a hybrid shooter, I know there's going to be some consequences that comes with extra megapixels, which means it's going to be more difficult to actually process. It's going to generate more heat when I'm recording 4K video. So that's something to be aware of when you look at megapixels and new sensors and new processors coming in. Which leads us to the 4K 60, and a lot of people are saying that it's probably not going to overheat. Now the Sony A7S III, I'm going to go back to that again. That seems to be able to handle heat very well. Hopefully that same type of technology will make it to the A7 IV. This spec by itself really doesn't tell us anything anymore. What we really want to know is, what is the codec? Is it going to be 422 10-bit or better? Is it going to be able to do RAW for the real pros? Those are the things that are going to be more important in terms of rumors, but we really don't get those at the very beginning. The last thing that I do want to talk about is the estimated price tag, which is $2,500, which is $500 more than the A7 III when it got introduced. At least that's what I believe. And we really have to remember the A7 III was definitely one of the more remarkable cameras of the previous generation because it just set a new bar in terms of what an entry-level camera can have, because it just had a lot of pro-level features that Sony just put into it. It was definitely one of those cameras that was very hard to find for a very long time, and even to this day it's still a great camera body to own, and it's still pretty competitively priced. So for this camera body to be $500 more expensive, I'm expecting there's going to be a couple of other specs that are going to be drastically improved, or it could be something like it's built in Japan, which is something that I would definitely support. So as many of you longtime viewers know, I definitely want to support companies and countries that support the democratic process. I don't want to support any authoritarian countries, and we need to support companies and countries that support our same value systems. In my case, it would be life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just to keep it short. So that could be one of the reasons why there is a marked increase in price, but I'm only really speculating here. So let's go ahead and move over to the Canon RF Roadmap, and they actually have quite a few lenses mapped out. So let's go ahead and start off with tilt shift lenses. These are usually geared for architectural photographers, and I have tried a few of them, but honestly I don't really know much about them, so I don't really have much of an opinion on that. It is quite interesting that they say that these are going to be the first tilt shift lenses with autofocus. So it'll be interesting for me from a technical standpoint on how they actually achieve that, and it's definitely going to make these camera lenses easier to use, so there might be an increased popularity in them. Now when we move down to the zoom lenses, there's definitely a lot to talk about here. We have one of my favorite, which is the 10 to 24, but I like the 10 to 24 in terms of crop sensor, so there's going to be a focal length difference. It actually is much closer to the next one down, which is the 14 to 35 f4. Both of these are USM lenses, which means they're more on the pro side, so they're going to be very expensive lenses. The next one down is an 18 to 45, which is an STM lens, so that's going to be the more budget oriented lens. So that one's going to be more affordable, so I would probably be super interested in one of these two for vlogging. I might actually try the 10 to 24, but that is a wide angle lens that's really hard to achieve with a crop sensor. So I'm definitely really excited to see these lenses come out because they are f4 lenses. That means they're going to be at least reasonable in terms of size and weight and carrying abilities. At least that's what I hope so. The 70 to 200 f4, that one's already announced, and there's plenty of people that already talked about about it, this is one of the more interesting 70-200s that I've seen in quite a while. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of these full frame sensors, they're getting so good in high ISOs that I actually don't mind going to an f4 even if I'm going to shoot in low light situations. That's because the ISOs that I'm willing to use on these full frame cameras, they're so much higher than cameras that I used to use 4 or 5 years ago. There's just an incredible improvement in ISO performance nowadays that an f4 lens just becomes very usable even in low light situations. Moving down to the prime lenses, I'm actually recording on the 35mm f1.8 STM lens right now. So the 35mm f1.2, which is the pro version, I bet you that's going to be a really great lens. I've actually been trying a lot of different RF lenses within the Canon lineup, and I gotta say the most impressive lenses so far right now are the prime lenses. They're just rendering out new levels of fidelity that I just haven't seen before. There's definitely trade-offs, but if you're looking for ultimate image qualities, these prime lenses definitely deliver. Personally, for myself, I'd actually be more interested in the STM lenses because we reached the level of fidelity on these lenses where even the STM lenses perform really well, and they already resolve so much color information that I don't really see myself needing to go to the pro lenses because I just don't need that type of detail for what I want to do, especially for YouTube or any type of enthusiast activities that I'm currently doing right now. And then finally, we move into the super telephotos, and these are all going to be super expensive lenses, so I'm not going to spend time talking about them. They're great to have if you can actually afford them, but honestly, for me, these are rental house lenses. In other words, if I have a specific event that I need to shoot for, I would just rent them from a rental house because they're just too expensive to own. There's definitely a lot of exciting lenses to come for the RF mount, so it's definitely something to keep track of if you're a Canon user. Anyhow, that's all I have to talk about this week. Let me know what you think about the Sony A7 IV, what you would want to see in that camera system, and if you're a Canon user, what lenses excite you the most. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.